back.
I know. I can't wait to find out how her date went either. So, shall we get started? Magic Bites by Ilona. Andrew, silly. Such a dork. I sat in one of those visitors' chairs, deep in the bowels of the night protector's office. This time, Ted was not talking on the phone. Instead, he regarded me from behind his desk like a medieval knight watching the besieging Saracens from the ramparts of his stronghold. Moments stretched into minutes. Finally, he said, I pulled your file from the academy. Oh, shit. You had an E rating, he said. E for Electrum. Not that big of a deal, really. Do you know how many squires with E ratings came to the academy in the 38 years that it existed? He asked. I knew. Greg told me so many times that the number made holes in my ear membranes. But provoking the protector would be no good for me. So I kept my peace. 8, he said, letting the words sink in. Including you. I tried to look solemn. Ted moved his pen 2 inches to the left, gave it a careful look, and leveled his gaze back at me. Why did you leave? I had a problem with authority. A bad case of honor student ego. It went beyond that. I realized that the order was the wrong place for me, and I withdrew before I had a chance to do something really stupid. In my mind, Greg's voice said with a touch of reproach, and so you became a mercenary, a sword for hire, without a purpose or cause. Ted said, you're working for the order now. Yes. How does it feel? Well, Doctor, it feels rather sore and tingly. He waved my whip aside. I'm not fucking around. How does it feel? Having a bad case in the city is nice. Having a base in the city is nice. The MA sticker opens doors. There's a lot of responsibility. It bothers you? Yes. When I'm on my own, I screw up and my paycheck goes down the drain, so I eat what I grow until the next thing comes along. Now I screw up and a lot of people might die. He nodded. Feel choked by authority? No, you gave me a long leash, but I know it's there. Just as long as you remember. That's not something I would forget. I've got a complaint from Nadareha, he said. I relaxed. The tide was changing. Oh. He claims you're avoiding discussing the case with him. He had a lot to say. You know why he's making... He frequently has a lot to say, I said. You know why he's making noise? Yes. Both the people in the pack are suspects. He wants to put on a show of cooperation. Ted nodded, approving of my assessment. I had no cause to go to the casino, I said. You've got one now. Yes. Good. Then after we're done, go and shut him up. I nodded. Tell me what you've gotten so far. I unloaded. I told him about the dead vampire and the hidden brand. I told him about the meeting with the Beast Lord who wanted to be called Koran, and I told him about the yellow lines on the M scale in Anna's dream. He sat through it all, nodding with no expression on his stone face. When I was done, he said, good. I realized that the audience was over and left the office. This time the Saracens escaped without burning oil scalding their backs. I proceeded into Greg's office. Something had been bothering me since last night, tugging at my mind, and this morning. My wits sharpened by fury. Over the icy shower, I finally figured out what it was. The names of the women in Greg's file. I'd forgotten about the 4 names, just let them slip from my memory, which was both irresponsible and stupid. I should have known better than that. Finding the file and extracting the page, listing the names, took about 5 seconds. Sandra Malott, Angelina Gomez, Jennifer Yee, Elisa Konova. I checked Greg's files looking for the names, but none of the women had individual folders. Besides, coming from different ethnic groups, they had nothing in common. I rummaged around for a phone book. I found it in the lowest drawer and looked through it. Gomez and Ying were common surnames, and Malott was not infrequent, so I looked for Canova. I found 2 men with the surname Canova. Anna Canova, Anatoly, and Denis. Russians denoted female gender by adding a vowel to the end of their surname. Oh, that's interesting. So female form of Canova would be Canova. Given that, I thought the names were worth a try. I dialed the first one and was informed by an indifferent female voice that the number had been disconnected. I tried the second number. The phone rang, in an older female voice with a slight accent. Yes? Hello, can I speak with Elisa, please? There's a long pause. Mom? Elisa's missing. The woman said quietly, we don't know where she is. She hung up the phone before I had a chance to ask anything else. Since Malott was my second best bet, I looked for it and found 6 Malotts. I hit a pager on the 4th one, a young male that told me that Sandra was his sister and reluctantly informed me that she was also missing since the 14th of last month, but refused to say anything else, adding, the cops are still looking for her. I thanked him and hung up. I called 19 people with the last name Ying and 27 with the surname Gomez. I could not find Jennifer Ying, but there were 2 Angelinas among the Gomez's. The first one was 2 years old, the second one was 20 and missing. It was a safe bet that Jennifer Ying had suffered the same fate as the other 3 women. I considered a visit to the precinct, but the rational part of the brain informed me that not only would they throw me out without any information, I'd also call enough attention to myself to make my job even more difficult. Cops had respect for full-fledged knights, but they did not cooperate with them unless the circumstances left them no choice. It was not even a night. It was possible that all 4 ladies grew claws and fur and called Curran Lord, in which case it'd be logical to suppose that they were missing, because they were among the 7 dead shape-changers. I called Jim to verify, but either he was not home, or he decided not to take my calls. I didn't leave a message. With nothing left to do, I put away the file. It was nearly lunchtime, and I had a plastic surgeon to meet. The decorator of Las Colinas must have been a great admirer of both early Aztec and late Taco Bell architectural styles. The restaurant was a gaudy mess of bright booths, garish piñatas, and fake greenery. A resin skull rack modeled after the actual racks which the ancient Aztecs filled with countless skulls of human victims, crowned the roof of the long buffet style. Small terracotta replicas of arcane relics sat on the windowsills, among the plastic fruit spilling from liquor cornucopias. The setting did not matter. The moment I walked in, the delicious smell enveloped me, and I hurried past the 5-foot-high terracotta atrocity meant to personify the famous Zacopeli, the Prince of Flowers, which separated the entrance from the cash register. A red-headed waitress thrust herself in my way. Excuse me, she said with a smile that showed off her entire set of teeth. Are you Kate? Yes. Your party is waiting this way, please. As she led me past the buffet table, I heard a male voice asking the waitress, do you serve gravy with that? Only in the South. The waitress delivered me to a corner booth where Cress sat, immersed in the menu. I found her, doctor, she announced. Patrons at the neighboring tables glanced at me. The restaurant was not so crowded I would have strangled her on the spot. Cress glanced from the menu and shot her a smile. You remembered, he said, his voice filled with surprise. Thank you, Grace. She giggled. Let me know if you need anything. She swept away, putting an extra kink into her walk. I would not have thought that a woman with an ass that bony could make it wiggle so much, but she proved me wrong. I landed. A storm walking in, he said. 5 minutes here and the waitress already bat their eyelashes at you, I said. Must be a talent. He unrolled his napkin, took a round-tipped serrated knife from it, and mimicked being stabbed in the heart. Actually, it's not a talent, he explained, waving the knife around. The knife's blade looks sharp. Most people treat waitresses like dogs. They bring you food and wait on you, therefore they must be a lower breed of human being and don't mind being harassed. I took the knife away from him before he hurt himself and put it on the table. The red-headed Grace returned, dazzled us with another smile, and asked if we were ready to order. I ordered without looking at the menu. Crest asked for churrasco and chimichurri in an unaccented Spanish. Grace gave him a blank look. I think he would like the filet mignon and garlic and parsley sauce, he said. The chef's special. Her face brightened. Anything to drink with that? We both ordered ice water and she departed, wiggling furiously. Crest grimaced. A sudden change of attitude? I asked. I detest incompetence. She works in a restaurant that serves Latino cuisine. She should at least know how the names are pronounced. But then she probably does the best she can. He looked around. I must say, this place isn't a place to promote quiet conversations. You have a problem with my taste? Yes, I do, he said. I shrugged. You are quite hostile. He did not say it in a confrontational way. Instead, his voice had quiet amusement. Was I specific a quiet place, tastefully decorated and private, that would promote intimate conversation? Well, I thought you might. Why? You blackmailed me into a lunch, so I thought I might at least enjoy the food. Tried a different line of attack. I never come across anyone like you. Good thing, too. People like me don't like it when you try walking over them. They might break your legs. Could you actually do it? He said, grinning. Was he flirting with me? Do what? Break my legs. Yes, under the right circumstances. I have a brown belt in karate, he said. I decided he found a tough woman persona amusing. I might put up a fight. This was actually fun. I gave him a full blast of my psychotic smile and said, brown belt? That's impressive. But you have to remember, I break legs for a living, while you fix noses, he puts in. No, I was going to say stitch up corpses, but you're right. Fix noses would have made a much better retort. We grinned at each other across the table. Grace arrived right on cue, holding 2 platters. She set them in front of us and was called away before she could blind Crest with another toothy smile. The food's wonderful, he said after the first 2 bites. And cheap, too. I raised my eyebrows at him, meaning I told you so. I'll stop trying to impress you if you promise not to break my legs, he suggested. Alright, where did you learn to speak Spanish? From my father. He spoke 6 languages fluently and understood who knows how many. He was an anthropologist of the old kind. We spent 2 years at Temple Mayor in Mexico. I arched an eyebrow, took a bottle of hot sauce, shaped like stylized figurine, and put it in front of him. Talak, god of rain, he said. I smiled at him. So tell me about the temple. It was hot and dusty. He told me about his father, who tried to understand people long gone, about climbing countless steps to the top of the temple where twin shrines stared at the world, about falling asleep under the bottomless sky by the carved temple walls and dreaming of nightmarish priests. Somehow his voice overcame the noise of the restaurant, muting the conversations of other patrons to subdue white noise. It was so remarkable that I would have sworn there was a magic in it, except that I felt no power coming from him. Perhaps it was magic, but of that special human kind, magic born of human charm and conversation which I too often discounted. He talked while I listened to his pleasant voice and watched him. There was something very comforting about him, and I was not sure if it was his easy manner or his complete immunity to my scowling. He was funny without trying to joke, intelligent without trying to sound erudite. He made it plain. He expected nothing. Lunch stretched on, and suddenly it was close to 1:30 and time for me to go. We had a great time, but then I talked the whole time, so I suppose it's obvious. You should have shut me up, he said. I enjoyed listening to you. Would you go to dinner with me? I would, I found myself saying. Tonight? He asked, his eyes hopeful. I'll try. I promised, and actually intended to do so. Call me around 6. I gave him my address in case the magic knocked the phone out. I insisted on paying my half of the lunch, declined an offer to be walked to my car. The day I needed an escort was the day I turned my saber over to someone who knew what to do with it.
Mr. Natura would be delighted to speak with you, a cultured male voice informed me through the phone. However, his schedule is extremely busy for the next month. I sighed, tapping my fingers on Greg's kitchen table. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Charles Cole. I'll tell you what, Charles. Get Rowena on the line for me now. And I won't tell Natura that you've tried to stonewall the order-appointed investigator he's been waiting for. There was silence, and then Charles said in a slightly strained voice, 1 moment, please. I waited by the phone, very pleased with myself. There was a click, and Rowena's flawless voice said, Kate, my deepest apologies. What an unfortunate misunderstanding. Score one for me. No offense taken, I told her. I could afford to be gracious. I was notified that Natura would like to speak to me. Indeed. Unfortunately, he's in the field. If he knew of your intention to visit, he would have postponed. You would be blocked this evening, and I would be indebted to you if you could meet with us later. Let's say at 2 tonight. Score one for Rowena. No problem. Thank you, Kate. We said goodbyes and hung up. She had a way of subtly turning every conversation personal, as if the matter discussed was vital to her, and any refusal to her request would injure her. It worked both ways when you agreed to something. She acted as if you did her a great personal favor. It was an art I would have loved to learn. Unfortunately, I had neither time nor patience to spare. Unsure what to do next, I tapped my fingernails on the table until I got my interview with Carmen. I could not eliminate him as a suspect, and I had no other suspects so far. Maybe if I annoyed Natamura enough, he would supply me with other leads, but it wouldn't happen until tonight, which left 12 empty hours. I looked around the apartment. It had lost its immaculate air. There was dust on the windowsill and silver dishes in the sink. I pushed myself free of the chair and started looking for the broom, rags, and bleach. Come to think of it, a nap wouldn't hurt either. I had a long night to look forward to. When I woke up later in the now clean apartment, the light outside had turned the deep purple of the late evening. Preston had called. Too bad. An interesting thought occurred to me while I lay for a few extra precious seconds in my bed, staring out the barred window at an encroaching twilight. I held on to it, padded to the kitchen and called to order, hoping Maxine was still there. The phone was turning into my weapon of choice. Maxine answered. Good evening, Kate. Do you always work late? Sometimes. If I asked you to check on something for me, would you do it? That's what I'm here for, dear. I told her about the missing women. The cops are involved, so there has to be a file on at least one of those women, Sandra Malott. I need to know if they did any general homing spell using one of her personal effects. And same for the other three. Hold on, dear. I'll try to find out. She put me on hold. I waited, listening to the small noises coming over the empty phone line. The night had fallen and the apartment was dark, save for the kitchen eerily quiet. Tap, tap. Something scratched at the window. It was a small sound, like a dry twig striking glass. I was on the third floor. No trees stood close to the building. Tap. Silently, I backed into the hallway and picked up Slayer, cradling the phone between my cheek and my shoulder. The line came alive and I was jumped. Jennifer Ying has no file, Maxine said. Aha! Turning the light off, drowning the kitchen. Darkness. Tap, tap. I moved to the window. They do have files on the other three women. I reached for the curtain and jerked it aside. Two amber eyes glared at me, full of longing and hunger. A face that was a meld of a wolf and human leaned on the glass. Its misshapen forward jaws did not fit together right, and long strands of jewel hung from its crooked, yellow teeth. The skin around the lupine nose wrinkled. The nightmarish thing sniffed the glass, blowing air through its black nostrils and making a small opaque circle of condensation. It raised one deformed hand and tapped the glass with an inch-long claw. Tap, tap, tap. Both standard and high-end locating spells were made in all three cases. They were blocked and produced no results. Kate? Thank you very much, Marcine, said, unable to take my gaze off the monster at my window. I have to go now. Anytime, dear. Play nice with the wolf. Carefully, I put the phone aside, Slayer in hand. I murmured the spell, dissolving the ward around the glass, and unlocked the window.
The claws hooked the window's edge and effortlessly slid it upward. The wolfman stepped inside with marked slowness. One fine Sunni leg at a time, and stood 7 feet tall. Dense gray fur sheathed its head, shoulders, back, and limbs, leaving the sickening face and the muscular chest bare. I could see round dark spots dotting the skin, tightly stretched over his pectorals. "All right, pretty boy, what do you have for me?" He reached toward me, holding a large envelope in his claws. A red wax seal with some sort of imprint secured the envelope. "Open it," I directed. The wolfman clumsily snapped the seal, pulled out a single piece of paper, handing it with his claws, and offered it to me. I took it. His claws left small tears in the paper. 4 lines written in beautiful calligraphy said, "His Majesty Curran, the chosen lord of free beasts, requests your presence at the meeting of his pack at 2200 of this night." The paper was signed with a scribble. "My own fault, huh?" I said to the wolfman. "I did not tell him I wanted a formal invitation." The wolf stared at me. His drool made a small sticky puddles on the kitchen linoleum. I thought of being alone with 200 monsters just like him, each faster and stronger than me, ready to tear me apart at the whim of their leader, and a sinking feeling sucked at my stomach. I didn't want to go. "Are you supposed to escort me?" The nightmare opened his mouth and produced a low guttural growl, the frustrated snarl of a mind gifted with the power of speech but locked in a body unable to produce the words. Only the most adept of the shape changers could speak in mid-form. "Nod if yes," I said. The wolf nodded slowly. "Very well, I need the change. Stay here. Don't move. This is a dangerous place for a wolf. Nod if you understand." He nodded. I stepped into the hallway and touched the wall, activating the ward. A translucent red partition materialized in the doorway, separating the kitchen and the monster within from the rest of the apartment. I went to get dressed. I chose loose, dark gray pants cut to flare at the bottom. They masked my foot when I kicked. Prospect of many claws at my back made me think of light armor, but my suit waited for me at my real house, along with the rest of the supplies. Long overdue. Not that it would help anyway. Not in the middle of the pack. I dug in the closet where I kept a couple of changes of clothes. When Greg was alive, I only came to his apartment as a last resort, which usually meant I was bleeding and my clothes were ruined. I thumbed through the outfits, and my hands grazed leather, a black leather jacket. I could dimly recall wearing it at some point. Must have been during my "oh look, I'm tough" days. I slipped it on and looked in the bedroom mirror. I looked like a bravo, and it was hot. Oh well, it was better than nothing. I took the jacket off, changed my t-shirt for a dark gray tank top, slipped on the tangle of the black sheath, and put the jacket on again. Thugs are us. Great. Just had a super tight ponytail and loads of mascara, and I'd be right to play a supervillain's evil mistress. They half ways of making you give us your DNA sample. I settled for my usual braid. Having rebraided my hair, I paused, considered the arsenal available to me, put on thin wristbands loaded with silver needles, and took nothing else except Slayer. To get clear of 200 enraged shape changers, I need a case of grenades and air support. There is no reason to weigh myself down with extra weapons. Then again, maybe I should take a knife. One knife as a backup, okay too. And that's it. Armed and dressed to kill, or rather to die quickly, but in style. I went to get the wolfman, and together we took the gloomy staircase down to the street. I held Betsy's back door open for my guide, and he slid into the back seat as we started out of the parking lot. His claw tapped me on the back and pointed to the left. I took the hint and turned in that direction. The traffic was light, almost non-existent. Deserted streets flooded with yellow electric radiance stretched before us. Few people owned cars that ran during tech. There was no need to invest in them, since it was plain that magic was gaining the upper hand. An ancient blue Honda came to the spotlight in the left turn lane next to us. A man and a woman in
front seat were talking. I couldn't see the man except for his darkened profile, but the woman's face wore a blissful, slightly dreamy look as if she was remembering some happy moment. A small, brown-haired boy sat in the back seat. In a moment, he would see the monster in my car. I braced myself for a scream. The boy squinted and grinned. I glanced in the rearview window. The wolfman was pretending to pant. Black lips stretched in a happy canine smile. The gloom of the car hid most of his face and only the muzzle, illuminated by the outside light. And the glowing eyes were visible. The boy mouthed something that might have been, "Good dog." The light changed, and the Honda drove on, vanishing into the night and carrying away the child and his parents. They were reminiscing, undisturbed. We drove on, winding our way northeast toward Suwannee, and took us nearly an hour to reach the shape changer compound. And we had to leave the city behind to get there. All but invisible from the highway, the fortress sat in the middle of the clearing, defined by a dense wall of brushed oaks that looked like decades older than they had any right to be. The only sign of its existence was the highway that I'd missed it, despite my guide. Was a single-lane dirt road that veered so abruptly from the highway that I missed it, despite my guide, and had to double back. The trail brought us to a small parking lot. I parked next to an old Chevy truck and held the door open for the wolfman. He stepped out and paused. It's kind of a silent salute to the building. The compound loomed before us, a forbidding square building of gray stone, nearly 60 feet high. Darkness pooled in the narrow arched windows, guarded by metal grates. The place looked like the keep of a castle rather than modern fort. The wolfman raised his narrow muzzle and let out a long, wailing howl. Icy fingers of fear clawed their way up my spine and touched my throat. The howl lingered, bouncing off the walls and filling the night with the promise of a long, bloody hunt. Another voice joined it from the top. The keep. A third came from the side, then a fourth. All around us the sentries howled, and I stood still in the whirlpool of their war cries. A bit dramatic, and yet it had the likely desired effect of turning a badass like me into just another frightened ape, shivering in the darkness. Satisfied, my guide strode toward the keep, and I walked after him, listening to the last echoes of the blood hymn, flee into the night. The wolfman stopped before a large metal door and knocked. The door swung open, and we stepped inside into a small chamber lighted with electric lamps. A short woman with very curly blonde hair waited for us. Some unspoken communication must have passed between her and my guide. And she looked at me. "This way, please." I followed her through another door to a round room. A spiral staircase pierced the floor, stretching both up and down. I looked up and saw coils of stairs emerging with darkness. What? You want some? Sweet tea? "This way, please," the woman repeated and led me down the stairs. We descended, making several loops until my escort stepped into a dark side hallway. The hallway terminated in another heavy wooden door, and the woman pushed it open, motioning me inside. I stepped through. A huge oval room lay before me, bathed in a comfortable glow of electric light softened by opaque glass. The room sloped down gently, like a college auditorium, to culminate in a flat stage. On the left side of the stage, next to a door, fire burned brightly into a foot-wide metal brazier. Its smoke sucked away into a vertical chute. A smooth, slanting path led from the doorway to the stage. The rest of the sloping floor was terraced, segregated into 5-foot-wide steps. And on the steps, on uniform blue blankets, rested the shape changers. Most were in a human form. Some reclined by themselves. Some sat together with their families. One family to a blanket, as if they had gathered for some sort of underground picnic. With a shock, I there were more than 300 of them. Many more. And Curran was nowhere in sight. The door closed behind me with a click as one of the shape-changers turned and looked at me. I wondered what they'd do if I asked to borrow a cup of sugar. Behind me, the door opened, and 2 large males stepped inside, breathing down my neck. I got the message and started down the path to the stage. Ahead, several males stood up from their blankets and barred the path midway down. The welcome committee. How nice. I crashed to a halt before the men. "You're in my way," I said. "Really?" The kid couldn't have been more than 18 years old, with an open face and longish brown hair. His brown eyes laughed at me, and I knew this was a setup, and I knew who orchestrated it. They wouldn't blow their noses without Curran to say so. "Really?" I said, knowing what was coming. "From where I'm standing, you're in our way," an older stocky male said. A corner of his mouth curved, trying to hide a smile. He enjoyed the game. A tall male, shaggy with red hair, called out from a blanket. "Hey, Nick, don't you know how to step aside for a lady?" "I don't see a lady here," the stocky male leered at me. A wave of catcalls and growling rolled through the room so sudden it might have been choreographed. Mick kept sizing me up. Even his leer seemed rehearsed. There was no threat here, only a test of what I would do. I had to resolve it quickly and without direct violence, or the pack would never work with me. The sheer stupidity of the situation was staggering. The males grew bolder. The kid grinned. "What do you say, baby? Let's you and me go to the side and I'll show you a good time." The group exploded with laughter. This one must have been improvisation. The kid, pleased with himself, reached out and his fingers brushed my cheek. The moment his skin touched mine, I whispered a single word so quietly that even I couldn't hear my voice. "Obey." Obey. The word of power pulsed through my skin to his. The rush of so much magic leaving my body nearly brought me to my knees. The kid stiffened. The others did not notice, absorbed in making noise. "That's a good one, Derek," Nick said. "I think she could take all of us on, unless you mind sharing." I looked at the kid and said, "Protect me." His body exploded into motion, the mist of body fluids drenching the floor. A sleek lupine shape hit the older male, knocking him off balance. Nick fell on his back, and the huge gray wolf was on top of him, fangs bared in a vicious, feral snarl, hair away from his throat. "Hold him," I said. The wolf growled below, black lips quivering. The room was suddenly quiet as a tomb. I hoped it wouldn't be mine. "Derek," Mick said in a hoarse voice, the weight of the wolf on his chest making it difficult for him to speak. "Derek, it's me." The wolf snarled. "Don't move," I advised, reaching back and pulling Slayer from its sheath. It made a soft metallic whisper as it left the scabbard, and the grazes of the shape-changers fastened on the enchanted blade. A woman rose from her seat to my left. Her lips quivered in a telltale precursor to a snarl. "What the hell did you do to him?" I glanced around the room. The mood had changed. The game had ended, and their eyes burned like fire. The hair on their heads bristled, and the smell of murder was in the air. "This is Slayer," I said, holding the saber so they could see it clearly. The saber seethed, and the luminescent tendrils of smoke clung to its blade. "It has many names. One of them was Wolf Ripper. Push me, and I will show you how it got that one." "You can't take all of us," a male snarled to the right. "I don't have to." I lowered the blade onto the neck of the wolf. "Move, and I'll kill him." They became utterly still. Pack loyalty overrode their anger, but I didn't dare push them any further. "That's enough," Curran's voice said. The shape changes melted from my path, and I saw Curran standing down by the fire. I looked at the wolf. "Come." Hesitantly, the beast took his paws off Mick's chest. I stepped over the stocky man and walked toward Curran, the wolf trotting at my side like an oversized guard dog. I stepped onto the stage. Curran's irises were streaked with gold. He was pissed off. Ignoring him, I stepped toward the brazier, pulled up the right sleeve of my sweatshirt, and passed my forearm through the flame. Pain licked my arm. The stench of scorched skin and burned hair permeated the air. The room murmured. I proved my humanity and my control to the pack as any shape-changer would. No shape-changer who abandoned the strict discipline and allowed his beast to take charge could touch the fire. It was vital and very private ritual, one they did not expect me to know. Karen's face was stone. Come, he said, and the wolf and I followed him off the stage, through a door, and into another, much smaller room, where 8 people sat in the padded chairs. They rose at Karen's approach and remained standing. 3 women, 5 men. Jim was one of them, so my old body was a member of the pack council. Fancy that. The 8 looked at the wolf, at me, at my arm, and then at Karen. Jim opened his mouth to say something and clamped it shut. Derek, Karen called. The wolf glanced at him. The blaze of Karen's eyes seared him, and he sat still, mesmerized. Karen made a strange sound, half growl, half word, but an unmistakable command. The wolf shuddered. Karen repeated the order. The wolf shook harder, his lean body convulsing and whined weakly. The lord of the shape-changers glared at me. Release him. Is that a request or an order? A twitch ran through Karen's face as if the lion in him wanted to claw its way out. It's a request, he said. I kneeled by the wolf and touched his thick fur, making contact with the skin underneath. The beast trembled. Is the room warded with containment? Karen nodded. I looked at the wolf and whispered, There. Release. The strength of the power word rocked me. Red circles swam before me, and I shook my head, trying to clear my vision. The wolf sagged to the floor as if all strength suddenly left his legs. Karen growled, and the animal vanished in the dense mist, leaving the kid naked and wet on the floor. I couldn't, he groaned. I know, Karen said. It's okay. The kid sighed and passed out. One of the women, a long-legged, lean brunette in her 30s, covered him with a blanket. Karen turned to me. Take one of mine again and I'll kill you. He said it in a conversational manner, matter of fact and flat. But in his eyes I could see a simple certainty. If he had to, he would kill me. He would not lose any sleep over it. He would not give it a second thought. He would do it and move on, untroubled by ending my existence. It scared the shit out of me, so I laughed in his face. You think you can do it by yourself next time, big guy? On second thought, you better bring some of your flunkies to box me in again. You are getting soft. Behind him, someone made a strangled sound. That's it. I'm dead. Flashed through my head. Kern's face jerked. Bloodlust flooded him, and then with a single massive exertion of will, he regained control. The effort was almost physical. I could see the muscles on his face relax one by one as his anger imploded. The rage in his eyes died, smoldering amber, and he stood before me, relaxed, loose, and calm. It was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen. I need you for now, he said. Glancing at his counsel, he asked, Is Corwin ready? Yes, my liege, boomed an older man, barrel-chested and thick, with enormous shoulders and arms that would make any blacksmith proud. He looked to be in his 50s, his curly black beard and thick mane of black hair sparkling with isolated strands of gray. Good, take her to the room. I'll join you shortly. Black-bearded man approached the door on the left side of the room and held it open for me. Please. I made my exit. We walked side by side through a winding corridor, the man with the black beard and I. My name is Mahon, the man said. His deep voice held a slight burr of a Scottish accent. Nice to meet you, I murmured mechanically. It would have been much nicer under different circumstances, he chuckled. Knowing the extent of the pack's welcome, I would have preferred Unicorn Lane. You must understand that Curran can't permit anyone to take something that's his. If he allows it to happen, his authority would come into question, and some ask if he couldn't do the same thing to him as you did to Derek. I am aware of the pack's mechanics, I said, and you are an outsider. The pack is distrustful of outsiders. I'm a human outsider. The pack treated me as if I were Ilona, with Curran's permission. Very rarely a shape-changer chose to follow the code in his own way, refusing the pack. Such individuals were called loners. They were the ultimate outsiders, treated by the pack with suspicion and dislike. Mahon inclined his head, supporting my assessment of the situation. Corinne never does anything without a reason, he said. I was told you'd met him. Perhaps you indirectly challenged him at the meeting. Indirectly? I had challenged him. Deliberately. Your knowledge of our customs is unusual, continued. For a human outsider, how did you come by this information? His voice promised no confrontation. My father, I said. A man of code. In his own way, not your code, but his own. You've learned well. No, I said, he taught me well. I was difficult. Children can be sometimes. We stopped before the door. Do you need some ointment for your arm? I looked at the red, angry welt, marring my skin. No, unless you catch it right away. The ointment won't do any good, but I appreciate the offer. I shook my head. Tell me, do you always pacify irate guests of the pack? He opened the door. Sometimes. I suppose I have a calming influence on misbehaving children. Please. I stepped through the door and he closed it behind me. The room was small. A single lamp threw a sharp cone of light onto the table in the center. 2 chairs stood by the table, the farther one occupied by a man. He had purposefully positioned himself so the light was turned away from him. The setup reminded me of the spy movies from my childhood. Finessed you, didn't he? The man said. His voice had a scratchy quality to it. I bet another 10 minutes and you ready to apologize. I don't think so. Put up my chair to the table. The man leaned back, remaining in the shadows. Don't beat yourself over it. He'd do it to everybody. Why I don't talk to him? You're Corwin. No, I'm Snow White. He rocked back, bouncing on the back legs of his chair. And who's the man that walked me here? Mahon, the Kodiak of Atlanta. The pack executioner? The very same. I digested the news. He raised Corin, you know? Oh, and he calls him Lord like the rest of you? Man shrugged. That's what Corin is. She has trouble with that concept. She has trouble with that concept, Corin's voice said from behind me. I was learning. This time I didn't jump. You may be their lord. You sure as hell ain't mine. Corin was leaning against the wall. Where's the rest? I asked. There has to be more people watching. Probably the 8 that greeted me in the room. Where I almost talked myself into death. The alpha male of the wolf pack, the head of the rats, the person that spoke for the scouts, the smaller shape changers, and someone who stood for the larger beasts. They are watching, Corin said, nodding toward the wall. For the first time I noticed someone way near. I looked at Corwin. Why don't you move into the light? You sure? He asked. Yeah. He leaned forward, letting the light play on his features. His face was horrible. Large, flint-hard eyes sat deep in his skull, overshadowed by heavy eyebrows. His nose was massive, his jaw too heavy and prominent to be human. He looked like he could bite through a steel wire with little effort. His reddish hair, thick and textured like fur, was combed back into a ponytail. Long sideburns hung from his cheekbones, almost to his cheek, framing tall, pointed ears with small tufts of fur on their ends. The same hair, only shorter and thicker, sheathed his neck and his throat, leaving his chin bare at such a precise line that he must have shaved. His hands, resting on the table, were misshapen and out of proportion to his body. Despite short, thick fingers, each hand could enclose my entire head. Clumps of reddish fur grew between his knuckles. Corwin grinned. His teeth were huge and pointed. Sickle claws shot from the tips of his stubby fingers. He spread his fingers in a cat-like kneading motion, scraping a wooden surface onto the table. Oh boy, I said. How do you fluff your pillows at night? Corwin licked his canines at me and glanced at Corin. I like this one. Let's start, I said. You haven't asked me what I am. Corwin tapped the table with his claws. I'll figure it out. Familiar words from the long sessions at the academy resurfaced. I'm Kate Daniels. I'm a lawful and documented representative of the Order. I'm investigating a murder, and you are one of the suspects. With me so far? Yes, Corman said. I'm here to question you with the purpose of establishing or eliminating you as a primary suspect. If you've committed this murder, you may incriminate yourself by answering my questions. I can't compel you to answer. He can, Corman said in a scratchy voice, nodding toward Curran. That's between you and him, just as long as we are clear that I can't force you to cooperate. We're clear, sweetheart. I flashed him a smile. The information you provide today is confidential but not privileged. What does that mean? It means, Curran said, that she'll keep it to herself, but she'll have to give it up if subpoenaed by court. He's right, I looked at Corman. I must also warn you that if you murdered Greg Feldman, I'll try my best to kill you. Corwin leaned back and a strange gurgling rumble emanated from his throat. A moment later I realized he was laughing. I understand, he said, his irises shining with green. Let's begin then. Have you ever taken any part, directly or indirectly, in the murder of Greg Feldman? No. I had all the major points. He knew that he was in the papers, and nothing more. He had never met Greg or the vamp in question. He had no idea why anyone would try to kill them. He did not know who Gastec was. Would you be willing to donate some tissue for an M scan, I asked, finally. Tissue? Blood, spit, urine, hair, something I can scan. He leaned forward with a low murmur in his throat. I could donate something to you. Something other than blood and spit. I leaned to him until our gazes crossed. Thanks, I said, but I'm not available. Mated. No, busy. You won't stay busy forever. On impulse, I reached and scratched him under the chin. He closed his eyes and purred. There are cats, I said. Yes. He turned to my offer, my fingers better access to his chin. And then there are cat wares. His eyes opened just a tiny bit, and a green shone through the slits. Born an animal, I said. And now I am man, he continued, turning again so my fingers would scratch a farther point on his jaw. A man lynx, I would like to read, and human females are often in heat. Do you still hunt among the trees when the moon is out, lynx? I asked softly. Come to the wood at night, he said, and you'll find out. I sat back. Do you have an M scanner? We have portable, Curran said. That will be fine. I waited until they brought back the portable out. Even the portable scanner weighed over 80 pounds. A single woman carried it in and sat it in the corner. A large construction of metal and wood that resembled a sewing machine which had undergone a Celtic warrior battle work. The woman examined it critically, picked it up with one hand and moved it a few inches farther from the wall. Strength was something that shape changers had in abundance. You know how to work it? The woman asked me. I nodded, took the glass tray from the scanner's storage compartment and smiled at Corin. About that hair sample? He held his sideburn, topped and flushed his claws. A clump of reddish hair fell into the tray. I put it into the examining platform. Green beams flashed in the printer word. Finally, it stopped, and the slip of paper slid from the slot. I pulled it. The lines are there, a series of short, faint slashes of color, but in the wrong place. I twisted the paper, trying to catch the right angle of light. Light yellow, green, no match. There goes my only suspect. Are you satisfied? Curran asked. Yes, he's clear. Obeying Curran's nod, Corwin rose and left. We agreed to a trade. I remember. What can I do for you? Curran looked to the open door, and Derek staggered in, unsteady on his feet. He slumped against the doorframe, his face haggard. He looked like he needed a few more hours of sleep and a good dinner. Felt a pang of guilt, just a tired kid caught in a pissing contest between me and his boss. You can take him with you. I blinked. As what? As a bodyguard, as a connection to the pack. Take your pick. No, Curran looked at me. We agreed to exchange of information. At no point did I say I'd take someone with me. Besides, why the hell would I want a wolf who to report my every breath back to you? I'll bind him with blood oath. He'll do nothing to harm you, physically or otherwise. He won't spy on you. Derek tensed against the wall, and I tried to be reasonable. Even assuming that I believe you, I can't take him with me. Look at him. He's a kid. If I get in a fight, I won't know whose neck to save, mine or his. I can hold my own, the kid said hoarsely. You can't force me to take him. I don't want his blood on my hands. If you won't take him, his blood will be on your hands. Curran crossed his arms over his chest. You caused this. You took possession of my wolf in front of the entire pack. You left me no choice. Was I supposed to squeal for your help? I came here in good faith and walked into an ambush. The responsibility is yours. Curran ignored me and plowed on. You've brought my authority into doubt. I can't just let it go. As of now, I have 3 options. I can teach you a public lesson in humility, and oh, I would like that very much. His face left me no doubt as to exactly how much. But I have to suffer you, because you're the order. Point of contact. I can't punish him. I can punish him, which I don't want to do, or I can give him to you, and let it be known that he was yours since our last meeting. You looked distressed, and the blood oath had driven him berserk. It will let him save face. Shook my head. I won't take him. Then I'll kill him, Curran said. All the blood drained from the kid's face. He pushed himself from the wall and stood straight. He disobeyed me, Curran said. He touched you. So I'm well within my rights. First sheathed Curran's arm. Claws shot from his huge paw and pricked the skin under Derek's chin. The kid winced. I like him. Curran's voice was almost a purr. It won't be an easy kill. Bleed him and I'll skewer you like a stuck pig, I said through clenched teeth. No, you will try. You'll wave your sword around and talk a lot of shit, and then come back at the last minute, and then I'll snap your neck and his. Sickle claws danced dangerously close to the faint flicker of pulse on Derek's neck. Time to learn how to write checks I can cover. You win, Your Majesty. Please bind him now. I have an appointment in 3 hours. All right. I think that's a good stopping point. I have no idea where I put my little my little bookmarks. I have them, but I guess not. Oh, there they are. Wahaha. I've just gone crazy is all. Thanks for coming by and reading with me. So much love.